You are listening to the Enormocast.
Do you remember those halcyon days back in January, when every ray of sunshine felt like a warm hug from a celestial being? Skiing, climbing, we yearned for its caress. But now that it's dead summer, the tables have turned. The sun now stalks us like an enormous toddler with a magnifying glass. The burning orb, the Death Star, call it what you will. Just don't be caught out at noon on some edgy crimp fest lest your feet swell and your tips shred. But Black Diamond has a way to fight back. My favorite piece of BD apparel, the Alpenglow hoodie. Built with UPF sun protection, pits for movement, a hood designed to go under your helmet, and even some sort of odor control next-gen tech to help with that sour fear stink we all work up on the gnar. Or is that just me? Is that a thing with everyone, the stinky pits after being scared? But frankly, if you aren't basically living in a sun hoodie during the summer months, you may in fact be an iguana. But at least now, your tongue can go from 0 to 60 in 1/100th of a second. Don't just feel the burn, fight the burn, and check out the Alpenglow hoodie and all the great gear at blackdiamondequipment.com or your favorite local shop that really, really wants your face-covered business right now. Look, folks, you've been hitting that hangboard like a swole gibbon, doing repeaters until your veins twist into ridiculous words like Venga. Your homemade wall is splintered and worn with your thrice daily prostrations. But what if, just maybe, power, endurance, and power endurance, whatever that is, isn't actually what's holding you back? In fact, it's your lousy footwork after all. That's where Sportiva comes in. Sportiva has the best line of climbing shoes in the world for when you stop hanging around and actually have to climb something. From legends like the Mira and Squama to new standards like the Solution Cop. And don't forget the TC Pro, the only shoe to free solo El Cap. Remember that? So when the hangboard is once again cobwebbed over, or just that place you stash your one-hitter, do what you've always done and stand on your feet with Sportiva. Check it all out at Sportiva.com, or as soon as your local shop is open and ready for your business, rush right down there and give them some money.
Listen, where are you playing in town? Are you playing here?
We're doing the Enormo Dome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
big
big
house.
place,
We sold
that
it
side
out.
of town. That's a
Very
big
nice.
place. You sold
What's
it
that,
out.
20,000 seats?
You
really should.
Look, you better get up there before you panic. Those pens are loose. You're very good. I have really enjoyed climbing with you. We'll make it. I don't think so. But we shall continue with style. Good weather, bad weather. Now or later, anytime's good for climbing.
Today's show is brought to you by Black Diamond Equipment, with support from Maxim Ropes.
And the fine folks at La Sportiva. And don't forget our charter sponsor, Bonfire Coffee. Go to bonfirecoffee.com and enter Enormo at checkout for a discount on great coffee and to support the Enormocast.
And now back to the show.
How do I start the show?
There's music usually.
Yeah, there's music, and then hello and welcome. Oh, there it is. I remember now. See, it's been so long since January since I actually did an interview.
It's a long time. Do that.
Hello and welcome to the Enormocast. This is your host Chris Kalous. It is July 6th. Yeah. July 6th, 2 days after the 4th. Still getting fireworks in the neighborhood. I don't know about you guys, but this will be episode 201 of the Enormocast. 201.
Yeah,
excellent. Just passed into the, into the meaningless 200s, I guess. On today's show, I have a couple guests, which I'll introduce in a moment, and this is the long-awaited Lost listener mail episode. Long awaited because I asked for listener mail submissions way back in November. The deadline was sometime in December, And what I did was I asked for submissions in return for some swag. I would send people swag, which I thought was like a good idea to get some submissions. But, the fact that people actually listen to this podcast, even to this day, even after all these years, I know my statistics, but it's kind of like, just numbers that don't seem to mean anything until I get hundreds of listener mail submissions, which was overwhelming. And that led to me shutting down a little bit in terms of like, I don't know what to do with all these listener mails. So that was like the first 3 months of what happened to listener mail. And then COVID-19 happened. And then now we're sort of, we're actually at a climbing gym. We're at the Monkey House in Carbondale, Colorado,
Whoop, whoop.
which is open. And so we've got a nice big space to do this in. So I think we're being relatively etiquette savvy to what's going on. And I want to thank Fabrizio Zengrelli for letting us use the space. And the Monkey House is open. If you're in Carbondale, Colorado, or in the Roaring Fork Valley, they are open to climbing. So please come down and support Fabrizio and Leah and the crew here at Monkey House, because they need your support, as all climbing gyms do. They're hanging on by a shoestring.
Ditto that. Always support your local gym.
Yeah. So
Sure.
thanks for those guys. And so here we are finally. I finally got I was getting the emails and I was reading them, and then I was basically getting so many that I was just like instantly piling them into a special folder, and then I didn't want to open the special folder. And I have a real problem with email, but the special folder where these were was a frightening prospect. So I finally opened it. I've sifted through them a little bit randomly. So if we ask a question that's so much worse than the question you sent, dear listener, and you're like, what? That question sucks. I had a way better question. Or it's the same question you had, but I chose theirs and not yours. It's nothing. Like I just is completely, I dipped my toe in there and I tried to read them all and I tried to organize them. And then I just said, I gotta go, because we're only going to get to a few, and maybe we'll do another episode because there's so many and there's so many good questions. So, but please don't get on my case. If I didn't pick your question, I picked somebody else's that wasn't, you didn't think was as good as your question.
PAS question.
Yeah. I did not put any pause questions in. We've covered that ad nauseum.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I didn't.
Anyway, my guest panelists are return guest Mary Harlan.
Episode 145.
Episode 145, a local climber guide. You guided today, did you not?
I did, in Rifle, Colorado.
Yes. So quite a deep resume. I would say you dabble in all the disciplines.
I attempt to.
Yes. Rock climbing, rope climbing, a little bit of bouldering, trad, sport climbing. You've guided big snowy things. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I have guided on Denali.
Oh, excellent. That's big and snowy.
It was really fun.
Okay.
Kind of a party up there.
So you're like a legit like certified guide.
I am legit. I'm not certified in all the disciplines, but I am legit.
Right.
And I have AMGA training.
Sure. Okay.
I'm good.
So that's who's in my in the left corner, if you will, and to my right is sort of a more recent transplant to the Roaring Fork Valley, Francis Sanzaro, who works at Rock and Ice magazine. You've got an associate? Are you an associate editor? Is that
So I'm now the editor in chief of Rock and Ice.
Okay.
You're the
That's
and Gym
week.
Climber and Ascent.
Okay.
Oh.
Man, that Ascent. That Ascent.
Such a fun one.
Well, not just the recent one, but the whole thing. The whole Ascent, the re-emergence of Ascent.
Yeah.
I think it's been a really great thing that you guys have done.
It's such a cool mag. Like started in like the late 60s in California, like the height of the political, upheaval at the time. And if you look at those old issues, they're super cool and artsy and funky. And I am super stoked to be able to put that together every year with like Rock and Ice and work with those great writers. It's fantastic.
Wasn't Steve Roper involved in there?
I believe it was Alan Steck and Steve Roper, who were the two original founders.
The 50 Classics guys.
Oh, classics. Yeah, these guys are, they know what they're doing.
This is historical knowledge right here.
Yeah. Ascent is it's one of the finest examples of like early climbing literature, just experimental and badass.
Yeah. So
That's rad.
So here we are. So you've got some experience. You're again a rock climber. Is that right? An ice climber as well. Do you ever climb big snowy mountains?
That's where I'm weakest. Yeah, I stick to like the more technical rock climbing, just like you, trad climbing, sport climbing, bouldering, ice and alpine. But yeah, the big stuff is something I can't say that I've had a ton of experience, especially the greater ranges. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't actually have a lot of snow questions. I was just curious.
That's Mary.
Honestly, climbing big snowy peaks is extreme walking.
Right.
It's okay.
Okay. So the format is that I have pages and pages of questions, and I'm going to shoot some questions, and we'll just discuss. These guys they're pretending like they're going to take notes. I think that's going to last like 3 minutes at the most.
Put on a good show.
But really cool. Oh, and these are sight unseen by my guests, panelists.
Yes.
Because I actually just got them together about a couple hours ago, and then I left them at home. And I had to go get them. But they opted to wing it.
Dude, gunslinging is the best.
We're gunslinging.
That's how we're rolling.
Okay, and we're going to try to stay off of current events, just so you know, this time around.
In the PAS.
In the PAS. You know what I love about the PAS, among other things? Which, for anybody who doesn't know, it's a personal
anchor system.
Okay, I was about to say attachment system, but it sounds so close to POS that it's like it's perfect. But we're not going to go there.
We're not going there.
Okay.
Mary wants to though.
PAS.
I'm gonna ask some questions that are a little bit geared towards talking about you guys as climbers to get a little feel for who you are. Okay. Even though they were apparently addressed to me in a way, but we can sort of expand to all of our experience. A quickie here: gate in or out? What do you do on your quick draws? Gate in. Gate.
Okay, I recently had to come to Jesus about this. Okay. I
thought this was going to be quick. All right, this is what happens on the listener mail.
So this is fresh for me.
Is it like every question becomes like 20 minutes? But go ahead.
This is a big one, Chris. You've nailed it right off the bat here. You've gone right to the heart, And so for me, I've always been gates in my whole life, and I've been like adamantly gates in, and I don't know why, but I recently was I was clipping in my shirt, like on this big climb, right? And I was like, what in the F? Like, it's giving me all this trouble. And I remember this debate I was having with someone. They're like, oh yeah, like for sure, gates out, because when you reclip the piece, you can pull on it with the gates out, and it's secure, right? Because if you go gates in and you throw it on the back, throw it on there, you're not really sure it's on there all the time unless you give that downward pull. Right. But the upward pull is really good. So I'm going to be quick, and I'm going to say gates out, because you can get that inverted clip with the tug. Bada boom.
Okay.
I have always been a gates out girl.
Okay.
Oh, okay. That's two.
I'm gates in.
Oh, Chris, give us the argument.
I don't have one. It's just the way I've done it.
No matter what.
I've just done it that way since the beginning, and
gates
why would
in.
I change?
Trad and sport, same thing?
Yeah.
Always gates in.
Okay. Always gates in.
Okay, no, wait. Actually, I do have one extra added comment here, and that is, I'm gates out when the carabiner is on my harness, but if I have a sling with gear, it's gates in.
Like a shoulder?
Like if I have a shoulder sling on, and I generally carry my quick draws or extendable draws on a sling when I'm trad climbing. Gates in, gates out on the harness, out on the harness, in on the sling.
Boss.
Okay. That was from Jeremy in Australia. Got listeners down down under. Here's a question. I'm going to sort of some of these I'll paraphrase, other ones I'll read. But are there any safety issues you want to give a shout out to on the Enormocast that have not gotten the same attention in previous episodes? So one thing I have my check your knots thing at the end, and we've talked quite a bit about rappelling in this last year because of the simul rappelling thing that got all out there. But yeah, what about you guys? What do you think are something that you hit with whoever you're climbing with or with beginners? Like, what is a quick thing that's like your personal, like this has to happen for me to be comfortable climbing with you?
I think probably the number one thing that I think about when I think of safety with a newer partner would be communication around how I am either giving them a lead belay or how they're lead belaying me. Because one of the things that I see frequently is complacency in the lead belay, meaning like tons of slack is out. The person standing, further away from the cliff than I would like them to. And then even going so far as to like, I like to be lowered slowly. I don't want to be lowered really quickly. It makes me feel like I'm going to hit the ground.
That's a preview of a TAPS issue. You know, the infamous TAPS episodes?
Yes.
Yeah, lowering quickly is out.
Not cool.
Not cool.
No.
All right. Okay. So in terms of like checks, I would say the biggest thing you need to check is your ego. And here's what I mean is like, I go out with climbers and like, I've been climbing for, I don't know, like 27 years. And like, I go out with guys that have been climbing 30, 40 years and I will always check their knot and I'll look at it and I'll be like, and I'll pull it, and I'll like check the places. Like, I'm not really okay with this, like going up there and like people just being too cool to like be like, hey man, how's the belay? Because, like at Rock and Ice, I write our accident report and for every accident that we publish, I probably research like 10. So I'm really reading about death a lot, and it's disturbing to see. And this goes to Mary's point about complacency. It's disturbing to see how many people would like avoid a really unnecessary accident by just like having their partner check something, double check. And so check your ego. It's not about, I've been doing this too long. I'm too cool to like look at my partner's not. Like, get over it, man. Like, even when you're tired, it's dark, you're on a route. Like, that's especially when you need to check stuff and not rush through things. So I'm a huge fan of that. I still do that with all my partners, whether beginners or been climbing a while. So,
I started that check your knot thing. I kind of, like a lot of things in the Enormocast, it became a little bit of a call card at the end. Everybody has a sign off or whatever. But it's honestly, it's not something I was quite as adamant about as I am since I started it's almost like I now feel like, well, if someone ever sees me not check my partner's knot, I'm going to get in trouble. So the funny thing is me saying that all the time has actually made me way better at it. And I get I climb with a lot of guys that are like me or girls that are like me that are, well into their climbing career, have families, have, reasons to go home in one piece more so. And I get compliments from their spouses and boyfriends and girlfriends that they're like, we really like them climbing with you because we know they're like, you're dealing with this stuff. So that's a little different than the answer to the question. But I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but one of the big things that I've realized, and you could probably back this up with this accident report thing, is it's like a kind of a broad one, but it's like, pay attention. Because aside from like just the screwing up, like not tying your knot, but that's an attention thing too. Like, I always say that tragedy is like stalking you at all times. And it's so many times when I've screwed up, it's just this weird lapse of attention. And I was honestly spaced out, or I wasn't in the moment, or I wasn't thinking. And like, even on big climbs, when you hear about these big tragedies, it a lot of times comes down to just somebody didn't pay attention at that second. And so, it's like, we go out into the climbing world to kind of forget about our worries a lot of times. And it's like, you kind of almost have to make sure and like do that consciously to be like, I can't be thinking about work right now.
There's no way. If I have something going on in my life that's extraneous from that day of climbing, it's like, I'm going to be top roping.
Yeah, no, that's right. For sure. You're having like a real stressful day, you're exhausted. Like you gotta know that you need to watch yourself really carefully. I got to reel it in.
Because
Chris is right. Like, the Grim Reaper's there all the time with rock climbing.
Right.
Like, if you don't know that, then you haven't really you don't really know what you're getting into. For sure.
Yeah, because it can be just like a sunny day. Everybody's top roping. It's all just like chill, and then bam, and we've all been there where there's been an accident around us if we haven't ourselves been in one. And it's just like the gut punch of hearing something go wrong and hearing the clatter and stuff. And you're just like, what happened, and it's like, actually, I just kind of got like a little choked up even saying that, because you're just like, fuck,
Yeah.
So anyway, pay attention.
Yep.
Don't be, too cool for school, and check your stuff and tighten up your damn lead belaying. It's the most important thing you're doing out there.
And the communication around all of it. I mean, I think that's really the big take home message is like communicate with your partner, see what they're doing when they're putting you on belay, look and check each other and talk about it. 'Cause that's the one thing I'm like, if I ever meet somebody even and I'm climbing with them for the first time and they're acting like the communication piece is too much, then I'm like, I don't want to climb with this person if they can't communicate about the most simple thing and the basic safety thing that's going to keep me alive.
So this is from Andrew in Alberta, of course, in the Canadian Rockies, where suffering is an art.
Yeah.
I want to hear about the climb you did that involved the most suffering but still ended in success. So this is, again, off the top of our heads because these folks didn't see the questions ahead of time. So what jumps to mind, Mary? You seem to have something on the tip of your tongue.
Well, actually, Chris, I feel like I have a lot of suffering.
Well, we only have,
examples.
a certain amount of time.
However,
Once upon a time.
I'm going to say that I did a route in the Black Canyon.
Of course, yeah. I knew this was going to go Black Canyon-y.
It is. I feel like I suffer the most in the Black Canyon. I feel like the Black Canyon is the place to test your suffering meter. Eighth Voyage of Sinbad was the route that I did in the Black Canyon. I actually, after the first time I did it, where we had to bail about 1,000 feet off the ground and rappel in the dark off of whatever gear we could find, and then hike out the poison ivy infested steep loose rock gully back to the top. And that was about a 2,000 foot jaunt up to the top.
The Walk of Shame.
The Walk of Shame, as they call it. V0 actually is what it's rated. I came back the next weekend partly to retrieve the gear because I wanted my gear back, which I did get all of it except for a 3.5 cam, and completed the route. And it was hot as balls. It was, again, poison ivy infested all the way down. And I am very allergic to poison ivy. Like, we're talking all summer. I will have it once I get it. Huge welts, pussing.
Beautiful.
I mean, I pus out of multiple areas. It is gnarly. And when it's hot as balls in the Black Canyon and you're totally dehydrated, the last thing you want to do on the second to last pitch is drop your climbing shoe. So, of course, I dropped my climbing shoe on the second to last pitch of doing this. We were going on like 16 hours. I think we finished at maybe 3:00 in the morning or something. And when I dropped my shoe, I was so pissed that I threw the other fucking climbing shoe off the route.
Did you have your pro shoes with you?
Yes, okay. I did. But I was a little upset at that moment. Threw the other climbing shoe off. And there was this moment of like, maybe we should simul climb. And I somehow got, the rope wasn't coiled properly for the simul climb. And I somehow got the rope like caught around my neck in a weird way.
Oh, yeah, that sucks. Sweet.
And was like, stop pulling.
Stop. Yeah, it was the Dukes. It was the Dukes.
That's exactly what happened. So I mean, we finished like 16 or 17 hours later. It was Leonard Coyne that I contacted to get information from about the route. And one of his comments, and Jim Nigro too, both of whom commented, although Leonard gave me a really nice list of things, but one of the things in his list, which was congruent with what Jim Nigro told me, was we were on a lot of drugs and we didn't really know what we were doing or where we were going. And so going into the route then for the second time with that information really actually was helpful.
Made more sense.
I was like, yeah, this is a route that seems like somebody might have been on drugs doing. So
that's good.
That's that.
Nice. You got anything, Francisco?
Okay, so all right, I've had some time to think about this since Mary's been.
Sorry.
No, it's been great. Thank you. I had a couple options, so I'll go rock on suffering and not the cold stuff. And I think for me, one of the things that was like, I guess suffering in like the sense of being really painful and regrettable, but having a good outcome was probably, I was like 14 and just learning to rock climb. And I took this trip to Colorado, and one of our older friends had taken us up the Yellow Spur, and he put me on the sharp end. And mind you, I had like almost never been on lead ever. Okay. So of course we get to the cliff and I forgot my harness, and they're like, oh yeah, just like, string up some tube webbing. So I strung up some tube webbing, around my waist, and I had like sweatpants and like a No Fear shirt, and was totally crushing it in like August, right? Feeling the part. And I remember just getting off route, and I forget what pitch it was. It was high, maybe like 4 or 5 or something like that. I got off route and my harness falls to my feet with all my gear, and I'm on lead. And I just remember like panicking, and I had like the longest 5 minutes of my life, and everyone's yelling up at me, and I'm off route. I don't know what I'm doing. We don't have a topo. And I just remember like thinking, wow, like if I make it through this, I'm either going to quit climbing or keep climbing.
Oh my God.
And I kept climbing. But to me, I guess it had a happy ending because I didn't die. But like suffering was condensed in that moment. Like a big mountain was in that moment. And time's relative, and it sure was. And I always wanted to write more about that story because it was really impactful and like
That's
me.
a great story.
But it's a true story. It's crazy. It actually like I'm looking down at my ankles, and I don't even know how to put my I don't know how to put my harness back together. Like it's just like a flop of webbing loops around my ankle. I'm trying to pull it up. I don't know what I'm doing, and like I don't know what I'm doing. And the gear's like around my shoulder. I mean, this is all far. I'm like 13 and a half, 14. Yeah. So
just another version of like learning to rock climb by like almost dying.
Yeah.
Over again.
Well, I mean, isn't that...
It's like we get that so much on the show.
Isn't that like again, like maybe the real thing is like, I mean, the suffering, but making it through it. Because at the end of the day, you look back and you're like, yeah, I'm going to go rock climbing again.
Yeah,
like,
sure. I'll just like, grow some hips.
You almost forget about the suffering, though. Like the instant that the thing is over and you have the beer in your hand.
That's true. That's the great thing about short memory.
You might have had a Coke in your hand or something at that age. Not the beer, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. No, I know.
You were
That's
like,
right.
yeah, that was cool. I did it.
No, it's totally true. Yeah, you got it.
We all have those stories, like Chris said. We all have those stories, and I think it's a climber's rite of passage.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
Well, mine, I'm going to go with, I don't talk a lot about snowy climbing on my own life, but I actually had a period of snowy climbing in my life, and I thought I was going to go on to the Great Ranges, and I spent a little less than a year in New Zealand and climbed the requisite mountains there that you climb as a aspiring snowy climber, including Mount Aspiring. But I climbed Mount Cook.
Oh, nice.
And I climbed the Linda Glacier. No, we climbed Zerbriggens Ridge, which is like a kind of pretty easy-ish route for that mountain, but not the easiest. But I'll keep this short. We got completely destroyed by the weather. The classic, like Mount Cook is famous for fast-moving storms. It's clear, it starts to snow, and then an hour later, it's just like wrecking you. I was 20, I think, at the time. I literally was climbing it with a Jansport pack on.
Yeah,
Jansport.
Classic.
Yeah, a lot of wool. I had a Joe Brown helmet, straight shaft X15s, which were actually state of the art at the time. But we started rappelling. We had to like bivvy in a Bergschrund, and like both of us got into the same sleeping bag. We had a stove, heated some water, and in like we were in there for a long time overnight, and like the next day was a complete and utter whiteout.
Oh.
And we had to wander down the Linda Glacier, which is the kind of up and down easiest route. And in the complete whiteout, just wandering without being able to see our hand in front of our face, and like just jumping off these little ice cliffs with like a kind of controlled belay and stuff, and like landing in these big puffs of snow. And finally I was like in this trench, like kind of just my goggles blew off. I didn't have any goggles, so it's just like horrendous, like ice in my eyes. And I'm like, and I kind of start to see my shadow. Like I'm looking down, I kind of see my shadow, and literally again within 5 minutes, it just rips out of there, and it's Bluebird.
No.
And we were like in the middle of the Linda Glacier, which we had it was like one of those trough glaciers. So we would like, if we started to go up, we'd like pinball back to the middle. And then we'd start to go up the other side. We'd sort of pinball back. We get around and we can see the hut now, a plateau hut. And we see somebody skiing towards us. And we kind of wander down, and it's this guy named Gottlieb von Braun. I can't remember it. Braun Elward or something like that. Gottlieb.
That's a great
German
name.
guy. He's passed away. He's passed away since, but and I don't believe in the mountains, but German guy that was like lived there forever, and he was the man. And he came out and he brought us some chocolate and some tea, and then kind of helped us get back down. But the part of the story was there was these other guys on the mountain that were stuck. And when we got back to the hut, that was about the time the helicopter showed up to go get those guys. Slung them off the ridge, brought them down, packed them up, and took them off in the helicopter. One of them just had hurt his knee, had fallen and hurt his knee, and not serious. But we were standing there, and Gottlieb doesn't look at us. He's just watching the helicopter go away, and he says, "It is better to rescue yourself."
Nice Gottlieb.
Yeah, I was like,
solid.
It's like, and it was like he wasn't looking at us, but we were like, he just said that to us because guess what? We rescued ourselves. So anyway, the success part is we came back like a couple weeks later and climbed it without incident. So there you go. And then later that year, the top fell off.
Oh,
well.
So you did it before it broke.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's my success suffering story. Although the funny thing is that since I was 20, I don't think I felt like I was suffering. I was just like, this is mountaineering.
I must like,
yeah. You know, like if that same thing happened to me tomorrow, I would just be like the biggest baby in the whole entire world. You know, I'd just be like, we're going to die. Like, shut up, Kaluz. No, we're going to die.
I'd be like, dude, it's extreme walking.
Chris is drinking his urine in like 12 hours.
Exactly.
Like, must do it now. Like, dude, we have water. What are you doing?
Exactly.
We've got water
we got this
and
jug of
snacks.
Gatorade right here. Look, I got a 7-Up. You want that? No, I'm drinking my pee.
Must do
it. Okay. All right, maybe we should get to some of the questions. That's some good stories, though. Okay, so this is kind of a funny one. What do more... this comes from Chris in Washington. What do more experienced climbers wish newbies like me understood so we could better assimilate to the climbing scene at the crag? To put it another way, what am I currently doing at the crag that will horrify me 5 years from now when I look back at what a noob I used to be?
I got two.
Wow.
Well, let me preface before we answer, because I have some answers, but at the same time, my instinct was like, fucking just do whatever you want to do. Like, be the goob and be the newbie. It's like, as long as you're being safe, like, fine, you know, jack your paws between your legs, whatever you got to do, you know? So part of me is just like, go for it. Just be safe. You'll learn it somehow. But then again, I have some ideas. So would anyone like to start?
We're going to appear really judgmental in this, but
that's okay. That's part
Chris
of
is teeing us
We're
up.
going to be judgy a little bit.
Yeah. All right. I'll say
Peter
one.
asked. He asked.
He did. Okay.
Yeah, he
Chris
asked.
from
Chris from Washington asked.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll say one that I don't like is when people try to like feel you out for like one-upsmanship. Like, what are you getting on? Oh, I did that.
Right.
Like, you know, oh, you're on that. Oh, I did that like last year as my project, or like, you know, that kind of stuff. I think that's lame. You know, because to me, climbing is a lot of things, but it's not about like crag competitiveship. Like, you want to be competitive? Hell yeah. Like, go get in a comp.
Yeah.
You know, and it's cool to be competitive with your buddy. But like, you know, when you start bragging, to me, that's a rookie mistake. That's me.
Okay.
So that's one.
Don't brag. I've there's the other stage is like you're an okay climber but inexperienced. That's where you get that. Like the true noob is he's not interested in trying to like front, but there's a step up that actually is a way. And I'll say this to Chris, like as a newbie, you're way less of a pain in the ass than
that guy. That's true.
The sort of pretty good climber, but.
Like the 511 plus, working on his first 12A, and it was like, really just,
Sport climbing wise, anyway. What's yours?
Well, one of them is, and this is just so judgy. It is judgy. PAS thong.
It's so sexy though. It's so hot.
Back here again.
She had to bring it up.
It's like the PAS thong. It's like, it just draws attention right to that zone. And I personally just don't. There's already enough leg spread going on. I don't need to then see the thong flossing.
And I know about the video of Tommy with it on El Cap. So don't send me that again, people. No, not you. I'm just saying every time we talk about this,
I might have been one of the people.
Tommy Caldwell has it between his legs.
Yeah, thong.
I know.
Yeah. The second one is the chalk bag on the carabiner.
Yeah.
And the worst part about that is when the carabiner is not a climbing carabiner, it says this is not intended for climbing use on it. And I'm like, at least get something useful. Like at least let's take something useful up the route, not a carabiner that can't be used except for like a chihuahua on a leash.
Yeah. That's a pretty...
Yeah.
I mean, again, like, is it unsafe? No.
No.
It doesn't matter. But that's definitely like a badge.
It's a noob.
You're just like,
that's
okay,
noob
this
territory.
is what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So...
the third one, and this is going to lead us into a tiny bit of diversity, although this could just be the discussion and it is guy assuming that the guy I'm with led the pitch.
Ooh, that's annoying.
So when I'm with my husband, who's got a 12-pack ab, let's face it.
He's got a 12-pack?
Dude. It's rock solid. Props to Lance.
Yeah.
And so it's like I'm standing there. We've just finished a pitch and some noob climber person, usually a guy, comes up and goes, "Hey, what'd you think of that pitch?" to Lance. And he's like, "Oh, yeah." And they're like, "Yeah, what'd you think? Was it hard? How'd you like it?" And Lance will be like, "She let it." And they'll look at me like I'm a three-headed alien. And all I want to do at that moment is take my shirt off and be like, look at these guns, dude. Just look.
She's got her guns out now.
I mean, I just find that to be really annoying. Right. And I find it to be a newbie climber thing, not so much an experienced climber thing. Like, I find experienced climbers are definitely like, would not make that assumption, but newbie climbers sometimes
I think
do.
every woman that I know that is a competent rock climber has that exact story about climbing with the dude and like the dude getting the no. Yeah, I mean, even Katie Brown said that on the episode. Remember?
That's
She's
crazy.
like,
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I have one thing to add.
I'm Katie Brown. What's up?
Yeah, exactly. And actually some of the most competent climbers I know, female or male, aren't necessarily jacked. Like, they don't necessarily have big muscles. They actually probably are better climbers because they don't have big muscles.
You know who was not jacked?
And over grip.
Was Caden Kennedy.
No.
He was not jacked at all.
No. I could actually sit here and name people. You might have to edit it out.
No.
Like Andrew Bisharat.
Yeah.
He's not jacked, but the guy can send.
Yeah.
You know? I mean...
What about music at the crag?
Oh, that's on here.
Okay, so...
Wait.
Okay.
Let me just give a shout out to
I know.
Gary in Florida has the simple question, boomboxes at the crag? Question mark.
Gary from Florida.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to come down hard. I'm going to come down, not quite a super hard no, but I'm going to come down a fairly, like, hard cessed. Yeah, hard no, actually. Yeah, I'm just going to go for it.
Do
hard no. Maybe it's a generational thing. Like, Chris, you're old like me, kind of, you know?
Yeah.
And, like,
older.
And so I feel like when we grew up there, like, it wasn't a thing to, like, you know, do the party deal at the base of the crag. And I got used to a certain type of ethic. And so maybe I'm stuck in that era, but when I go to a crag and I hear like 4 boom boxes and all that stuff and just music, and it's not boom boxes, it's like, like Bluetooth and iPhones and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know if I want to hear your music right now. Like I feel like that's a little bit projecty, like projecting your stuff onto somebody. And I'm going to go nay on that one. So that to me, that's a newbie thing.
It's definitely more of a newbie thing, although less and less. But I think part of it, when you talk about this generational thing, is technology. Because it simply comes down to that. Because, if you want to talk about actual boom boxes, because that's what Gary said, like
nice,
you
Gary.
and I grew up when you had, if you wanted to listen to portable music, you had this massive thing with like 6 D batteries.
Yeah, you had like $100 worth of D batteries.
Dude, it was John Cusack playing fucking
exactly.
the Genesis
So there was
song
just like this
was,
problem.
and-
But like the mini Bluetooth or just the phone or whatever is what has allowed this. And there's companies, selling it as outdoor gear is another problem.
Yeah, true. That's true.
Yeah. So I'm a hard no on it as well.
I'm saying no.
Okay.
Yeah, it's annoying.
Consensus.
Yeah, well, we're of a certain generation, but what about the person who's going to throw down the kindergarten playground rules card of "I was here first"? So what if you rock up to a cliff and they've got their tunes going?
I'm going to let him play.
Well, I mean, right?
I'm not going to say anything.
No.
I mean, I want to say something. Inside, I'm dying. It is soul crushing.
Right.
But outside, I'm going to be like, oh, nice tunes.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to go about my business.
Yeah, and I would say like I would probably judge a situation on like if they were being super loud and douchey, and they're playing music, I'd be like, hey guys, like, do you mind just turn it down a bit? But if they were just like really chill and I thought they'd like take the comment well, I'd be like, you guys mind like turn that down a little bit? I'm just trying to focus. I might say something.
Well, it literally, and I've seen this happen in the godforsaken Uray Ice Park.
Godforsaken.
I like
but
it.
But it's the music, if it's like, you've got a little like trance going and it's kind of quiet and it's over in your zone. But if people are playing it loud enough, I mean, we talked about communication. All of a sudden, like,
safety.
And that was the thing in the ice park is this dude was literally jamming Slipknot as loud as he possibly could. So and like, in that whole thing where you're how you top belay everybody, like, and you lower them down.
Yeah.
And then you have to talk and there's like hundreds of people yelling shit at each other, and this dude's it was so bad.
And then
like,
Slipknot's playing.
Yeah, and it was just like not the time. I mean, during the festival,
That's
like.
weird.
But there's a trend, and I'll just add one. There's a trend for this, Chris. Like you said, like they're selling this as outdoor sports equipment.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you're starting to see more like you see more like hammocks and more gadgets and more like REI commercial stuff. And it's like,
Can we go back to the?
I'm going to be crusty here, but like, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical.
I didn't really get my thing in with the newbie thing.
Oh, you gotta do your new.
I'm going to go back to Chris at Washington.
Rain
Throw the hammock in the garbage. I swear to God. I mean, we live on the Western Slope. There's not a lot of like trees to get your hammock on, thank God. But the hammocks, you're a rock climber. You can sit on a rock.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can I actually?
You will never see like a really excellent proficient climber in a fucking hammock.
No, you will not. And I have to add one more thing to this now that we're on this trajectory, but it has to be said. There is no need to be climbing in Rifle Mountain Park with your cordelette on your harness hanging down to your knee.
So awesome.
And your like ATC guide with both carabiners clipped to it and your like twirly triple length runner. There's no need. Take it off.
Oh, here's a fun one.
Ooh.
Maybe you could. It's really for me, but you perhaps can contribute. And this is from Sally.
Ooh.
And actually, I'm going to say her last name, Sally Mosier. Do you guys know that name?
Like Charlene Mosier?
No.
Climbing equipment.
But anyway, a bit of a Boulder legend for women climbers. So anyway, but this is from Sally. If the Enormocast was the subject of an episode of Black Mirror, what would the psychological, technological twist be? Do you know Black Mirror?
So good.
Oh,
I love
This isn't fun. I don't have a TV.
well, I'll just answer it. I came up with this is that
You answer.
it's that Alex, Honnold, and myself, we kind of do a Freaky Friday. You remember a Freaky Friday?
Yes, I do know that.
Okay. So we do a Freaky Friday where we change bodies. Okay. So Alex is in my body and I'm in Alex's body.
Ooh.
But the scary, weird part of it is it's not, I don't get his attitude. And I don't get control of his body. And so what happens is he goes and he fucking free souls El Cap, but I'm in there freaking out the entire time.
That's amazing, actually.
Just like every,
Quite
like
good.
on the boulder problem, I'm just like, no, that's too small. Don't grab that. Like, and just like basically like mentally shitting my pants the entire time. So, and I don't know what Alex's experience in my body is like, but pretty boring, I think.
He just calls people weenies on Enormocast. He's like, you suck, you know. Yeah. What are you scared for?
So that's my Black Mirror episode.
It's a great show, is it not? It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's so good.
Oh,
So good. You got, if you
He's
did have a
like,
TV.
he's like, man, this guy is really cynical.
Exactly.
Fuck.
He's like, I gotta get out of here. He's like, I'm starting to hate climbing.
Starting to hate everyone and everything.
People don't really know that about me. I keep it
We
hidden.
don't know what we're talking about.
Okay, this is kind of pertinent.
Oh.
This is from Jonathan in Virginia.
Oh.
I believe in Charlottesville, of all places. Very
yeah.
sort of nexus of a lot that's going on right now. What is your preferred way of dealing with climbers who can't take care of the crags and threaten access? Roadside crag at the Red just got shut down again due to people not following the rules. I think dogs is a big problem with that one. That's the one that's on private land that's just been by the grace of the owners. As climbing increases in popularity and so much climbing is on private land, what's the best way to deal with shitty people ruining it for everyone? Call them out. Shame them upon the Instagram. Shame upon thee. Sweaty approach sock filled with hexes.
Did you just say sweaty?
Sweaty balls. Yeah.
Sweaty.
Do you guys remember the ball? That
Yes,
Baldwin?
I know that reference.
The oldest.
Hi.
yeah.
Hi. This is, my name is Claire. I would like to talk to you about sweaty balls.
They're salty.
Could never do that show today. Just ever.
How did they
we couldn't
not
do that
break?
now.
Oh,
We
you
get,
could
like,
How did they not break in that one? Like
know.
and laugh.
Dude.
It's ridiculous.
hilarious.
Okay, so anyway,
Sweaty balls.
so what about that? I brought this up because it does refer to the quote unquote cancel culture, and
Yeah.
and there was a time when in my life where I was fiery enough to go that approach and to be like, I'm going to publicly shame thee on
You
the
did.
mountain project.
You did.
But I just like either I matured or mellowed out or I don't have time, but like I just I get it. Like it's horrible and these people, don't listen to reason and they're kind of unapproachable, but I mean, I just think you kind of just have to grin and bear it and do your best with access and cleaning up and but that's just my opinion. I don't know if it's like worth the I guess like the bad feelings you get from like being that person that's on the attack on the social media and stuff like that. But what about, I mean, are you guys the types that are willing to confront people that are acting like dickheads at the cliff in terms of, access or littering or having their dogs off leash or any of those sorts of things?
Yeah, I'm so like, for me, I guess I would take a scaffold approach, and like, so I would make sure that like the right person was approaching them, so if you're going to do it, make sure it's not Joe Schmo, but maybe the guy who helped develop that cliff so they have credibility. Because I imagine this character you're talking about, which we all know, is not going to take that criticism constructively. We all know that type, right? They just think the crag's theirs and they're just like, F you, that mentality. So I would definitely start with like a back channel. And I've had to do this for sure in my career, like definitely because areas got to be protected, man. And if like one person is threatening access, no way. I'm not going to let that because then we all suffer. So For me, yeah, I think you have to speak out. You have a duty to all your fellow climbers to just be like cool-headed and be like, hey, man, like this is a situation we're in with access and like this stuff's not helping. And I think you'd be cool about it. You back channel. And then if you got to go nuclear with like the call out, then you got to go nuclear. You know, I don't know. But I think they've put you in that position if you have to do that. If you're calling them out, then it's just like that's the last option you got. But I think that to me, that type of selfishness really would tick me off because access is hard, man, especially in the red areas on private property. Mm-hmm. Like we're lucky to climb there. And if we don't know that as climbers, then like we're not getting something across to that individual. So
yeah, and it's a experience that's not real common here. Actually,
it's not. Yeah,
we're it's like not. Public lands. Most of the climbing that I do is on some version of public lands because we're in the the West, and there's just empty tracts of BLM land and Forest Service land and things. So I mean, I can't think of a private crag in Colorado. Can you?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I think actually it's kind of weird, but the route Crystal Vision.
Yeah.
The ice climb.
Yeah. Oh. Yes.
Part of that's on my land.
Oh, nice.
Lance and
Shut it down.
I know, right? Lance and I have thought about this. Like, what if people like the way that the approach is described in the book, it totally takes you on another person's private property and not ours. So we're cool, but the most direct way to get to the route would be to go up our property. And Lance is like, we should open it. We should let people cross our property. And I'm like, do you really want a bunch of people? But then I'm like, there's not a bunch of people because it's not like the red where there's a bunch of people.
And it's not the most popular ice route either.
No, it's actually an unpopular ice route. So it's something that I've thought about. And I think, I haven't dealt a lot with crossing private property to get to a climb and therefore, pissing off somebody. But I do think that if I saw someone do it, I would likely say something, but just knowing already that the reaction of that person may not be favorable. And sometimes I don't say something knowing that the reaction is probably not going to be like, oh, hey, thanks. It might be like, fuck you.
Right. That's why you got to have the 12-pack ab guy do it.
I know, but the problem, and I could actually, I should throw, because he's really diplomatic.
Yeah. He's a bartender.
He's a bartender. Yeah. He's got to be diplomatic.
Yeah, he's good.
But I do think that it's important to say something and then just know that the person is likely or could possibly not react well.
One of the stages in the scaffold, as you said.
Oh, yeah, the scaffold. I have that written down.
Can be, I think, in terms of calling people out on the internet, is like a general call out. And not because if you start to get really specific
with names and stuff,
and or
it could cause problems.
Things like that. It's so like, I think, and even this like is a general call out about bad behavior in the red. Like let's
all do this thing that will benefit us as opposed to like, hey, Joe, you suck.
Right. Exactly. So, it's a tough one. And the internet is a rough place. And, again, like the canceling of people and is like kind of hard to swallow a little bit. So the years and the days and the months go by. It's like, I'm just like, man, we can't just attack each other, because the other thing is it's this game of like, one of the reasons I asked you if you would say something is because the problem, I think, is just that you're there and the person's doing this, and instead of saying something, you scurry home and post something. And that's where I start to get into this, like, man, that's not like...
That's kind of that's cowardly.
Yeah.
So. I think the test case for this too, Chris, is like 10 sleep. And I think the big lesson with the controversy up at 10 sleep was like deal with your dirty laundry inside your house first, because if you think that like going straight to the Forest Service or some type of institutional authority is going to mediate your intra-climber conflict, you better check yourself, because in that scenario, oftentimes like the Forest Service will just come down with these draconian rules.
Totally.
And so, long story
The teacher
short
takes
is
the ball away.
Yeah, exactly. Like keep the ball inside the climbers, be as civil as possible. Let the Forest Service, whoever it is, BLM, know that we can like handle our stuff and that we're good stewards of that area. And so going straight out, even call out generally online can bring the attention of like whoever it is.
Oh, they
Forest
watch
Service.
Totally. Yeah, they see it all go down.
So you got to deal with it smart first, in my opinion.
Yeah. You bring your mic up a little bit.
Oh God.
Popped up.
Can someone talk to me? I don't know about some of these issues. Like, what is going on intensely?
The padlocks on some roots and stuff.
I have been
check it out.
not.
You're a beautiful flower. Don't ruin yourself by getting involved in all these things.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, you're just you're like this. You're like one of those tribes they find in the fucking Amazon.
Uncontacted tribe.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful,
like,
Mary.
don't ruin
Here's
it.
the thing. It's like 4.5 months. I took myself off Instagram. Like, I don't look at the internet.
I know, that's
at
what
all.
I mean. You're like
and then
this
on top of it, I haven't had a TV in 25 years.
You're like
smarter
I haven't watched one. I haven't.
You're just this flower that's like
Beautiful
blooming in its sun, and we're all like in the dark.
Guys.
I mean, honestly, yeah. It's like don't let it.
Well, I kind of want to. I kind of want to.
We'll talk about it later.
Okay, so 10 sleep access issue, and then what was the other thing you guys talked about? Oh, Red River Gorge.
Anyway, so let's get a little deep here because we've been drinking, and so I think we've got the.
We've just been playing in the kiddie
I've had
pool.
more beer, by the way. I'm on 3.
So why?
Mercenary's waiting for you.
Hey, you remember your ego with climbing?
Damn it!
Remember that one? He's going to bring that up again.
No, it's good.
All right. You're right. I got to catch up. Anyway. All right. So why this comes from Fern, and I want to say Tiance. So you'll know who you are, I hope, by that pronunciation. Anyway, these folks listen, and they want to ask. They said, why after someone dies climbing, and this actually kind of goes back to your accident report thing. Why after someone dies climbing, everything is broken down immediately to find out what went wrong, when it could be possible to remember them as a human being first? How can we make changes in the community so people are more sensitive to death and grief? My defense of the breakdown is that we're faced with death all the time in media. I mean, shit, right now, it's overwhelming, but it's impossible to sort of ask me to have like deep, sensitive feelings that sort of overwhelm me about every person that has either had a horrible accident or died climbing. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's an initial feeling of grief over, mostly about like, well, their parents and their friends and the people that love them. But it's, I don't necessarily always muster that like deep internal feeling unless I knew that person. Mm-hmm. And so, I think that's a little bit of a part of it. And I think understanding like what went wrong is sort of inherent in what we do in a sense, because we're dealing with systems all the time. Mm-hmm. But I do also agree with them that it can be a little bit quick. But I think we're better than the ski community, the backcountry skiing community, in a lot of ways. And I dealt with that with Hayden because that was partially, that was a backcountry skiing accident. But yeah, I mean, that's my only thing to sort of like couch that in is like, if you're so sensitive that every death you hear about like really hits you inside, you're not gonna survive long in this world, So, but in terms of like a way of approaching it, you guys deal with this at Rock and Ice all the time. I mean, you do the Climbers We Lost,
yep.
Which I've unfortunately been a part of. So yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts on like approaching like accidents and whatnot, and how to write about them, how to talk about them in climbing?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something like we talk about all the time, and it's something that happens year round, and it comes in waves. When the alpine opens up, alpine climbers tend to die, and so we're used to this cycle now. And climbing community is small, and we have so many friends, or at least friends of friends, or dozens, and you guys too. I know climbers that have just not made it, and it's really sad. And so I would break this question up into two parts. So the first thing I would say is that there's accidents and there's obits. An obit that Rock and Ice publishes tends to really focus on the memory, of that person, who they were in that community. And for those, we almost always try to get a friend. We reach out to a climbing partner immediately. Like when Brad Gobright, we had Cedar Wright. Right. And I reach out to Cedar, like, hey, Cedar, like, you knew Brad, you knew what it's like to be on the sharp end with him. You knew how he climbed. Can you write this? And that's a memory piece. Really wasn't even concerned with how Brad died, But, when someone does die and there's an obit, it will say a little bit how it happens. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. One reason is that I think our culture just really likes analysis. You watch football, NFL, the first thing you're going to see is people analyzing plays. And I think people want to know, what's the back end? What's the story? Like, what's at work here? And when that obit or that accident turns into an accident report and I decide to write on it, I take into account a couple factors. One of the factors is that it offers a new bit of information for a climber that can benefit from that knowledge, right? And so accidents are always the exception most of the time. Like we talked about, people tend to make mistakes, lapse of attention. And I think the readers really can learn a lot from what went wrong in an accident report, which is different than an obit. But accident report really says, like, I really spend a lot of time writing an accident report because I have to oftentimes do like investigative work. I'm there with like detectives. I'm looking at police reports. I'll talk to eyewitnesses that, and I'm like, okay, was the sling, did it have a water knot? Did it not have a water knot? Were there locking beam or were there not locking? And I have to try to piece together what happened and where a mistake was made. And readers, especially in our reader surveys, they say that that's one of the highest rated things they look forward to. So for me, it's a public service to be able to look at accidents and look how people, they're not always deaths, by the way, not by any means, but it's important, I think, for people to know how accidents happened and to help other climbers coming into the game not make those mistakes. So that's how I'd look at it.
I mean, I think that you're, talking to these folks who asked the question, it's like your level of sensitivity around the particular incident can guide you. And what you just said, it's like, there's the ways in which you choose the media that you want to read. And so it's like, if it's something that's painful for you or you have a closeness to it, even if it's, sounds like an oxymoron, but like a remote closeness, and I think of Hayden Kennedy again as part of that. Like so many people felt moved by that had never met him. I heard from so many of them. So, I mean, I think you can choose your how you consume it, and that look for the obituary, and to learn about that person's life, and then months later, if you want to find out the other parts, you can find them out. It's not like you immediately need to read the analysis or anything else. So, I mean, that would be, I guess, my advice, because
it's good advice,
both things have value.
Yeah. And
maybe it seems a rush to print the sort of analysis, but for some people that could be a condolence. To understand what happened is a big part of like dealing with grief.
Oh yeah.
And so
true.
For you it's not, but for another group of people that are dealing with it could be a condolence of putting those things in order. I mean, I know it was, for HK. So, because I was confused and I didn't understand what had happened, and there was all this misinformation. We knew he was gone, but we didn't know why or how. And we knew Enga was gone, and we didn't know why or how. And until those things kind of went into place, I was super agitated. I was more angry than sad, So I think there's a place for both of them to answer their question. What were you going to say, Mary?
I just think that, number one, even family members want to know what's going on. I mean, I know from two personal experiences, one being that two of my best friends, but her husband was a guide and died in a climbing accident in the Tetons. And I was actually interviewed for Rock and Ice a couple years ago for this particular accident.
I know that accident.
Yeah. And, his wife was wanting answers. She wanted to know what happened. She wanted to know what failed. You know, she is also a climber and wanted to know what happened that day. And so for her, the investigation and even the publishing of things was welcome because she wanted to know what to make of it and what to think of it. So I think that for one thing, family members, close friends want to know what's going on and want to know what happened. And it does help people put closure and kind of put to rest what they think happened as opposed to, you know, what actually happened versus what you think happened can be different things. And so she wanted to know what actually happened. So she was welcoming like that investigation. And the second thing too is that with this type of thing that we're talking about, I mean, I have to give props to Madeline Sorkin for initiating and starting the Climbing Grief Fund. And I think that albeit it is something that could feel localized to the United States, I think that it could be very far reaching, and its connection with the American Alpine Club could certainly be further reaching to international venues. And so one of the things that I really admire about Madeline is that she has taken this very difficult subject of how to deal with grief and how to deal with the questions that we have around somebody either passing because of a climbing accident or getting injured during a climbing accident, or even passing and they were a climber, but it wasn't due to climbing that they passed on. And I think that she's addressing this in a really deep and emotional way. I think it's actually quite difficult for me to come up with the words that would describe the credibility that I think that she is allowing people. I don't know if credibility is the right word, but she's just like allowing that space for somebody or people to deal with their grief. And it's kind of a dark subject.
So
I mean,
dark.
We are definitely further deep than the kiddie pool at this point.
Right.
You know, I mean, so I really just have to give props to her because I worked with her on a climbing project to commence the Climbing Grief Fund. And I do feel that what she has, you know, at least single-handedly started, albeit she is very good at gathering up energy and gathering up like people to help her with it, right, has been incredible.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not, I'll say it's not quite single-handedly because I want to shout out to Henna. Her partner, I believe. I mean, I think they're married. Yeah.
They're
so,
married.
Hannah Taylor and I think her sister Summer. I want to say
they've
her sister
all been.
Summer.
There's been a lot of people involved, and a lot of people in the American Alpine Club have been involved in making
She's been
this
like
happen.
The climbing face of it.
Yeah,
you know, Madeline.
She's been the climbing face of it for sure, but. You know, it was one of those things where it was like, hey, I have this idea and I don't know how to go about it. And it's been a really cool idea that she's rallied the masses to help her gather energy for. Mm-hmm. And I'm like really psyched on that. So I think that's one way that the climbing community has responded to this. I also think that like Rock and Ice and other climbing publications have responded really positively by providing a platform for both people involved as well as the backstory behind it to get told. So, you know, I think there's some really positive things happening around it, despite it being something that's very difficult to deal with.
I'm going to piggyback another one on this as long as we're in here in the soup.
Yep.
Fabio from Zurich.
Fabio.
Yep.
I like him already.
I do too.
He says, we all know about the tragic accident of David Lama, Hans-Jörg Auer, and Jess Ruskelli. I'm from Austria, nearby where David was coming from. And although I didn't know him, or I was really hit by the news, I expressed this to a friend of mine in the U.S. who was actually quite close to Jess, which I didn't know that at the time. So there I was, somehow shaken, but not objective standards really affected by this tragedy, speaking to somebody who was actually immediately affected. That somehow put me in this place, and I felt that I might not have the right to feel that much troubled. Originally, I was thinking about going to the official memorial, but then I felt I shouldn't be there because I didn't know him personally, and therefore I didn't belong there. So I didn't go. Mm-hmm. When I saw the memorial movie now, his family said that it gave them solace, that so many people were there and actually didn't know David. So now I regret that I didn't go. What are your guys' take on that topic? And I brought this in because it has to do with Madeline and it has to do with Henna and what they're doing. And all I have to say is go.
Go.
Yeah. Because, I mean, if it's an open memorial, if it's not a private thing, that's what they want. And that does bring, you know, and I don't care if it's climbing or just, you know, it's like Steph's father died a couple years ago. And it's like just the fact that so many people show up. The more people show up, the more it shows like the influence that this person had on the world. And I think it's just all good. And I think that if you're sort of backing away from even expressing, you know, condolences because you feel it's not your place, I just think it's wrong. Like, nobody's going to say, you didn't know him. Like, don't tell me you're sorry about, I mean, it's just like the outpouring is the outpouring, and that's what you hear. It's like the outpouring of love. And so it's like, I think that, you know, if you have a chance, then you express it, even if it's a small message. I mean, don't go overboard, you know, don't, you know, claim a connection that you sort of didn't have, but a thoughtful expression and or attending an open memorial is like all good. It's good for you. It's good for the family, you know? So that's kind of why I want to piggyback on it. I don't know if you guys
you go.
With that. Yeah.
You go, you know? And like, and so climbing's a strange sport where a lot of times our parents don't even know what we do. And like, and I remember when I worked with Cedar on the Brad Gobright piece, and just, you know, when we worked with writing about Brad's death, you know, I remember something to the effect that his mom wrote, like, I had no idea Brad was such a celebrity. You know, and so it was like, it was after he passed when like thousands of climbers were like, holy shit, Brad's the man. Like, he's my hero. I looked up to him. He's a badass, like crucial to my story. His mom, I'm not discrediting his mom. I'm obviously just saying that this outpouring was precisely really important. I think climbing is a sport like that, where a lot of times our parents don't know what we're doing. And when they all of a sudden realize that, you know, there's this whole community that really loves us and is like got our back. I think that's important. So Chris, I'm with you full on. Yeah.
This is an interesting topic for me because I have actually thought about exactly what you're saying, Chris, where I'm like, I haven't actually had a stance on this, and I've kind of waffled on this. Like, I have kind of been like, oh, I don't belong. I didn't know the person. I don't want to show disrespect by showing up. And the other thing I think in climbing that can be kind of an interesting thing is that I don't want to show disrespect by showing up, and the people that really knew the person are like, who's that? I'm being totally raw here. Like, I completely and utterly have had this thought of like, I don't belong here because I wasn't really close to this person. And now conversely, friends of mine were getting married on the same date as somebody's memorial was. And I didn't go to either thing because I was like, I'm super close to both these people. I can't go to the memorial. And then the people getting married are going to be like, why didn't she come to our wedding? She wanted to go to a memorial. Like, it was kind of a weird thing, but I have fully thought about all these things where I'm like, I don't belong.
Well, I've thought about the bandwagon thing too, you know, like
that's what it is.
Everybody getting
I don't want to jump on a bandwagon.
Yeah, but I mean, I kind of had those thoughts in the past, and, you know, not to keep bringing up Hayden, but we all have a connection to Hayden.
Right.
You know, that's when I realized at his memorial and the emails that I got that I was like, fuck it. This is, if you're sad, then I'm not questioning that you didn't hang out with him in Rifle or whatever. You heard him on the Enormocast.
Yeah.
Or whatever. It's like
he touched a lot of lives.
Yeah, and it's still valid. You're sad. You get to be sad. I don't get to choose that you're not being sad or your sadness is not valid, Right. And so that's kind of it. And, to speak to what you said about this thing of like people looking and saying, who is that? It's like, I didn't know half or more of the people at that memorial because there were people from his life before climbing and I only knew him during climbing. And so, all these people grew up with him. They were childhood friends. They were parents who babysitted him there, So it's like, I think that's like a projection of like an insecurity that, because I mean, I wasn't doing that to like the 50-year-old lady, like, oh, what is she doesn't even climb. What is she doing here? Like, it's because she was his babysitter, or whatever.
I mean, I am a little bit insecure about showing. I'm kind of insecure about showing up to an event where, a person meant so much to somebody else and they really knew this person so intimately. And then I don't know them that intimately. And so it is kind of I don't know if being self-conscious is like a selfish thing at that moment, but it certainly is one of those things where I'm like, I don't want to be that person that shows up and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm really sad. But at the same time, I'm like, am I just jumping on a bandwagon?
Yeah, but where does it fall off? Do you know what I mean? Like, who gets to be there? Like, because you'd have to be like your mom. Like, the mom is at the top. And so the next people down aren't as intimate as her. And the next people down, and it's like your babysitter was there. Or so that's what I mean. Like, you can't put your level on the echelon.
Right.
It's a funny problem too. Cause if if LeBron James or Michael Jordan or John Elway dies, like tens of thousands of people are going to show up and no one's going to question that.
Right.
And I think climbing's has these growing pains where their celebrity's a weird thing,
Yeah.
And Hayden inspired a lot of people. He's a badass climber, bold climber, multidisciplinary climber, and a lot of people probably had this more remote connection to him. But it was a connection, it was a connection. And I think I'm with you, Chris. I think they had every right to be there. Like, who's to judge whether they had a real connection or not? And what that connection was, that's painful. Like, if you're insecure, maybe stand at the back during the church or whatever service and then don't go to the house, or what I'm saying? Or there's a couple gradations there.
Well, and again, if they wanted a private thing, they would have made it private.
Right. True.
And, and I think of, all these guys, David Lama, Hans Org and Jess, but I've always really connected Hans Org, who was on the show, with Hayden because they were friends and he's, I don't know, they really reminded me of each other. And I think that all these guys inspired a lot of people, but the connection a lot of people had with Hans Org was the same as they had with Hayden, just this wild man of the mountains, and if it inspired you and you felt terrible, then this dude should have gone, and it's hopefully, there isn't another opportunity to have to make this decision, Fabio.
Right.
You aren't put in this position again, but if you are, I would just encourage you to go. Yeah.
Yep. Amen there.
So we're going to finish up here and take it a little lighter, back up the arc. And for those of you who don't have children or are not planning on having children, you can stop now. You can stop listening to the Enormocast or this particular episode because we're going to do a couple of questions on that. I got a lot of questions about climbing with kids.
Yeah. I've got all kinds of things.
We got answers.
That's why I'm.
We got answers.
We got answers.
Partially, I want answers because you guys have kids that are much older than mine and much more involved at this point. So I'll do this one with John from here in Colorado Springs. In your experience as a dad and a climber, and talking to the Enormocast, Mary is a mom and a climber. What are some techniques for encouraging a love of climbing in your kid? And what are some of the pitfalls, no weight, crevasses to avoid? And it's funny that John would ask me this because I have no idea. Because Miles has been on a rope a little bit. He swings around.
He's little.
I actually jacked him all the way to the anchor on Climb a Dime a Ding Dong.
Of all climbs.
Well, I just happened to be over there, and I wasn't ready to like lock up the sprayathon. You know how like parents come in and lock that up, and there's like all these guys that are like wanting to warm down on it or some shit, and you're like, oh my god. But he kept telling me to crank him higher, so I cranked him all the way to the anchors, like 60 feet. So
good.
But anyway, I don't know the answer to this question, John. But we have two people here who have older kids who climb a little bit,
and we've talked about this.
So let's what's some encouraging and what are the things to avoid with having your kids become climbers?
Oh, God, it's gonna go a lot of ways, huh, Mary?
Start
us off.
Me?
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, okay. I think the number one thing is to actually discourage your child from doing your sport. So all along, I have told Sam that I don't care if he climbs. I don't care if he's a concert pianist. I don't care if he wants to skateboard. I want him to do what makes him happy. And I told him that we will have different things maybe. And my thing is climbing. And so for a little bit of time, and I'll just say probably he's been dabbling in the climbing gym or in climbing venues since he was like 2 years old and doing the king swing on, in the arsenal at Rifle and things like that. But like for him to actually develop a sense of climbing and what that means for him really took until he was like probably 7 years old. And then even then I was really like off hands with it. So if he wanted to do a climb, I'd be like, cool, let's do a climb. And the one thing that I've always done with Sam, no matter what, is I've never been like, let's go do a kids climb. I've always been like, hey, what do you think of this thing that the rope is on right now? Do you want to try it? And he's been like, yeah, I want to try it, or no, I don't want to try it. And that was probably my number one thing was like, I don't ever tell Sam what the rating is. And therefore he's just always tried it. And he's climbed up to 11C. So, and I don't mean he's like skittering up it like no problem. He hangs on it. He pulls on draws, but he doesn't care because he's having a good time.
No, you have to yell at him not to use aid.
I don't ever do that. I'm like, baby,
off route.
You get up this thing whatever way you want. It's all climbing.
Dab.
And then the second thing that
Calm down now.
Right. And then the second thing that I do with Sam, and I especially did it when he did start showing an interest in climbing, is I would actually hang. I would lead the route. I would clip in to the anchor, and then I would hang from the anchor, and I'd get my camera out, and I'd be like, okay, Sam, I'm ready for you. And then...
Ooh, that's good beta.
Yeah, it is good because then his stepdad would belay him from the bottom and say, hey, you got to tie your rope. You're not properly, and your rope has to be proper, and you got to check me and I got to check you. So his stepdad would be doing all the components, and I'd be just waiting at the top, and occasionally I'd yell down like, I'm ready for you when you're ready to climb. And Sam would climb up to me. And so he had a parent at each end. And I think that was imperative to him, not only feeling safe and comfortable with climbing, but also just feeling the emotional support that he might have needed, in addition to making it kind of fun to have your mom hanging from the top of a route waiting for you.
I could use that sometime.
I know. I'm like, I wish my mommy was up here right now.
Like I climb too hard a routes for me with Josh Wharton a lot. Like he like gets me involved.
We all have those partners.
And I would totally love a Josh Wharton at both ends of the pitch. It would be really encouraging.
It's awesome. It would be totally awesome. So I think that those are the two things: is don't actually tell your kid what a climb is rated. Don't walk to the crag with like, oh God, what kid climbs are we going to do?
Right.
Just climb and tell your kid, climb it if it looks good and if you want to do it. And then, you know, in their commencement of starting to climb routes with you, be at the top so that when they get up there, they can hug you, they can high five you, and they can have like a warm, fuzzy blanket wrapped around them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice, Mary. Okay, so I'll talk on a different level.
You yell a lot.
Well, you've got two kids too, so you've got a whole other thing
to establish credibility. They like rock climbing with me.
Yeah,
you know,
my
daughter's a little bit of a plastic puller, which is okay. I'm working through that. But okay, so I'm going to say two things. Here's what I think. This is a really good question, Kristen. I appreciate you bringing this up. So for one, I'm going to say what I think is a categorical imperative, and I think that if you look at so I know this for a fact, Adamandra Sharma, Janja Gombre. If you don't know who Janja Gombre is, she's the most successful competitive climber ever, Slovenia. Look her up. They've all said on the record that their parents, quote, applied basically no pressure to them as young athletes. Okay, so climbing is getting popular. Like you have all these soccer moms, soccer dads that are putting their kids into climbing on the team, which has just started up in their thing, and they think they're going to be these next like Alex Honnold's, whatever. Stop it right now, right? You know, in order to develop a good athlete, a lifelong athlete, in my opinion, that kid needs to be internally motivated, and they will not become internally motivated if you're trying to pressure them. So like, that's the high level. At the weeds, I remember when I grew up, or I was young, and I saw a picture of Tommy Caldwell climbing, I think Little Twin Owls crack, and his dad had stuffed dollar bills in the crack. And Tommy's like, you know, little guy, and just like, God, I need to get that dollar, you know, and probably to buy some like nerds or something. But like, his dad was onto something. And I think that a lot of parents are scared to incentivize climbing, but like, I will like put gummy bears up a route, you know, when my kids were young.
That's a good
Because it's fun. Because they can climb and they try hard and they get gummy bears, and that's awesome.
I like that.
So that's the first one. Number two is like have a lot of discipline as a parent to not yell at your kids for not like trying hard enough or like getting I've literally seen, I'm not naming names.
It's terrible.
I've seen pro climbing coaches who have written books yell at their kids for not using the pocket with their left hand where they should have had it. I've seen like literally at a crag yelling, don't do that. That's super lame.
Don't do it.
And then the third thing is like,
don't do it.
It's like, it's so bad.
It's terrible.
And like,
what about shaking them?
It's embarrassing.
I think you can shake them and that's fine.
It's
but
embarrassing
don't beta shame them.
It's embarrassing to whoever's yelling at them, and it's embarrassing for the kid. It's embarrassing.
It guarantees they won't be a climber.
Yeah. They don't want to do it.
It just, you'll crush them.
Yeah.
And then I guess the last thing is like, so my son has like learned the art of like bringing cams up when he climbs. And so he gets up there, he's got this number 4 hanging, and he plugs in, he pulls on it and yards on it. And it's so fun for him. And so I would just say like, exploit what excites them. And it's probably not getting to the top. It's probably some weird thing like hanging draws, swinging on the rope, blah, blah. If that's what gets him out to the crag, do it.
Well, and your son, how old is Frankie?
Yeah, Frankie's 7.
So Frankie's 7. My son is going to be 10 this year, and he's discovered Alex Honnold, Tommy Caldwell, Emily Harrington. If any of you 3 are listening right now, my child wants a poster signed by you.
I might be able to help him out.
He is so excited. Like, seriously watched Free Solo. I'm not kidding. We've watched it 16,000 times. But that's the point, is that when he was 7, that was the cool thing, was like, just let him have fun and like explore. And then when suddenly he got to an age where he was like, no, I actually kind of want to climb stuff and really work on the climbing, and the gummy bears weren't the inside of him anymore. That's when it was like, hey, I don't know what this is rated. Does it look good? Do you want to try it?
He's stoked on it. Yeah.
He's stoked on it. And if he pulls on draws, if he like whatever he has to do to get up the route, I'm like, that's great, babe. You're going up.
Yeah, if he's at the crag and not crying and complaining, that's a win, dude.
That's a win.
Get over it.
We're
It's
winning.
a win. It's a win.
We're
Trust
winning if there's no crying.
Yeah. Yeah. Bring a lot of snacks.
That's all I got to say.
Snacks is 100,000. That's good beta for all your friends,
And
your wife, your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend.
I'm sorry
Snacks.
to say this, but I was jealous of your baby mama's snack pack yesterday when we were climbing together.
Oh, yeah, we live and die by snack packs.
I was
now.
like, damn, girl, you got the snack pack.
Exactly. There was a lot of questions on this line of thinking, and this will be sort of our last thing, is that about sort of the bringing kids to the crag and this kind of, they're like one level above dogs at the cliff for a lot of people, and
it's a great comment.
all these sorts of stories, and including from one of my sponsors, Phil at Belay Specs, having some sort of issue where people were complaining about his kid, and basically, I'm just gonna say unequivocally, like, get over it.
Yeah.
Like, if whatever you're doing is affected by there's kids playing in the background or something like that, then go take the Rock Warriors way and get your mental training a little bit more focused.
Dude,
on
these
what
are the
you're
people
doing,
that bitch at kids on airplanes that cry.
Yeah,
like,
so-
get over it. Like, yeah.
You're outside. The outside is a playground for children. Rifle is just the most amazing place for kids. I'm sorry.
Super cool.
Just get over it. It's too bad,
Yeah.
And I mean, within reason, like parents, you also need to like take care of your kids and like not let them scream and cry for 20 minutes at a stretch without walking them somewhere else. And, there should be a middle line, but if you just have a hard, like, kids don't belong at the crag, you're living in the past, sister.
No.
I was just up at Wild Hours, Chris, and we had like a bunch of parents. Each it was like the first like real big family type of climbing trip. We had 6 kids. We had strollers, man. It was full on, and I was so impressed with like the amount of just like courtesy we had from the climbers up there.
Awesome.
I didn't expect it. I was, because I haven't always been at a crag with a bunch of kids, usually my own kids, but this time people are really gracious, and some of the other mothers there had young kids. They were changing diapers on the trail, this kind of stuff. But it was like, and people were courteous, and I was like, right on, man. Like if crags are more crowded, but this is what's happening, I'm okay with it. I think I was really just impressed, and just like happy to see that was people
awesome.
are supportive of bringing up that next generation.
Yeah.
Because that's really what it's about. That's what it's about.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a baby attached to my boob, and then I've gone up a road.
Nice.
And it's like,
that's awesome.
It's like, if somebody's got a problem with that, you put the baby on your boob then and see what that's like.
I remember when I first had Miles, when we first had the Enormo baby, like he was in the Bjorn, facing out.
Yeah.
And like I could have long conversations with a certain type of guy at Rifle where they would like maintain like strict eye contact with me. We would talk climbing, we would talk like beta, whatever, and they would never ever acknowledge, look at, mention that like 6 inches below my head there was a fucking baby attached to my chest.
The center of your life.
It was like
right there.
it was like if they look at him, they're gonna catch it. They're gonna catch like the disease, or whatever. It was like the strangest damn thing. I was like, man, dude, you are really socially like inept. You can't even mention that there's like this cute ass little baby on my chest.
Yeah.
It's
And
not gonna.
he's
You're not
cute
gonna
ass.
get it.
Yeah, he's a good looking dude.
You're not
Like,
gonna get it.
good-looking
You're not,
cat.
it's not a disease you're gonna catch, bro. Like, just say, oh, look at that guy. What's his name?
how have you dealt with that? What's been like the most like obscene type of interaction you've had when you have your kid there? Have anyone like scolded your kid?
No.
Or nothing like that. Always pretty good.
Yeah, because he doesn't hang around long enough. Anyone can like get annoyed by him.
yeah,
he's
he's
like
not
a kind of a
annoying
strange kid. He's
No, he's a good kid.
he disappear. He'll run away. Like so. No, you just like one. I mean, it was more like I said, questions and sort of concerns people had. But
Were you, I guess here's a question. Were you the kind of person before you had Miles to have been scornful of those who brought kids.
I don't think so. I mean, it's weird because I don't have any I don't think so because I don't have any recollection of having thoughts about it.
I forgot.
I was that guy. I was the guy
Yeah,
that wouldn't
me too.
acknowledge
Yeah.
it. But I mean, I've always liked kids well enough, and like can interact with them and chuck rocks in the creek with them and stuff like that. So I've never ignored them. So I don't think so. I don't recall having an incident where I was like, "What the hell? Shut that baby up! I'm trying to send."
I'm thinking about it because I was probably that person.
Right.
I was actually probably like, oh my God, that kid is so annoying.
Yeah, but there are
And then I had a
with all
kid,
my-
and I'm like, oh, I'm the one with the annoying kid now.
Right, and with
I mean,
all
kids
my,
can be
like-
annoying too.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Let's all
I was about
kids
to
can
say.
be freaky and annoying. They yell, they cry, they bitch, they throw shit. It's
They
like super
smell
annoying.
weird sometimes.
Yeah, but we're parents who are climbers
Yeah.
and trying to get out.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I mean, at least we're not on the fucking couch.
Right.
Just saying.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for doing this. Again, I want to give a shout out to Fabrizio and the crew at Monkey House because we're still sitting in the Monkey House late night now.
Whoop, whoop.
And it was a nice place to do it where we feel a little more airy and expansive and maintaining a bit of distance. So I want to give a shout out. And of course, if you're in town or if you're locals in the RFE, the Monkey House is open for business and they would enjoy your business. And there's been some changes. You can come check them out. And thanks again. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Your second appearance on the Enormocast.
Woohoo.
Francis, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Man, delighted. It's been great.
Part of the Carbondale media scene here. Climbing media
Conglomerate,
scene. The
you know.
conglomerate, yeah.
Yep,
So
conglomerate.
Yeah.
put us on the map. Rock and ice and climbing
Just
and the
Ascent.
Enormocast. So, and Ascent. All right, guys. Thanks for coming in. And maybe we'll do this again soon.
Peace.
Dun,
Thank you.
dun, 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 dun.
Want a beer?
You gonna call room service?
We got beer.
If you haul beer up this rock, you're insane.
I may be insane, but I'm not stupid. I didn't carry it. You did. It's in your pack.